All right, CNT120, Chapter 4 Lab. We're on the section with some commands. Now, we've used ping a whole bunch. We're going to touch on netstat, trace, and then eventually down here TCP dump. So we're going to touch on a couple of these commands that are useful for troubleshooting some of these issues. Now, netstat shows us some TCP connections and even some protocol data that's moving in and out of our computer. So on my Windows PC, I'm going to, let me open up my command prompt here. Here we go. We're going to use the netstat-a command. So over here, let's do netstat-a command. And this shows us the active and listening TCP connections on my machine. And there's not many, but down here I do see an actual listening and established. Listening connection, also established connection for my PC. Let me enter our space bar down here. You can do it. You can do it. I'm going to do a control. Oh, there we go. To finish it up. Okay, and this also shows some UDP and so forth. Okay, so this actually shows us some listening and or connections that a particular machine would have. And if I look here, here is my machine. So these would be different ones that would be active and or being used. And if I look here, these are probably the tabs in my browser, if you will. That's what we'd be seeing there. So that's what I'm able to see with netstat. And I can see that on a local machine. I can even see that if I'm working on a server to see what ports and what sessions are open on a system. Let's copy. I really want to just copy that part here. So I'm going to do my netstat command down to, I'm going to go down to where my PC was, just right about in here. That's good. We'll highlight that, do a control C. In my text file here, I want to put this is part 7, and this is our netstat command, and I'm going to paste that in. That shows here the main pieces I wanted to see were down here, but I want to see the command up there that we ran the command to do that. I'll save that. I'm going to minimize both of those, and I'm going to do a similar thing on Linux. I'm going to use over here netstat-tuan, which should be a similar kind of result on this guy, netstat-tuan. And I'm going to see a similar result here. Again, there's not much going on in this one, but I do see down here that is this local machine connected out to some process that's running on this computer. And that'd be something I might do some research on if it's a port number I'm not recognizing. That's actually, I think, a session running for 68. I have to look that one up. But there's a session that's running on this PC that I could see, and if I need to look up and maybe close out that session, that's what I'd be able to see with this. So I'm going to highlight this guy, and again, we'll do a right-click copy. I will come over to my text file this time, and we'll do part 7 netstat command, and I will paste that in. Yeah, a number of these were Wiresharks and things from other parts of the lab, so there's a gap there. That's all right. And we will save that, do a copy save or do a file save on this to make sure I'm saving my progress. All right, so there's my netstat. Let's now take a look at trace. Well, trace allows me to see a path that a machine uses to get to an entity. So we're going to trace to google.com, if you will. So on my Windows machine, I'll bring up my command prompt again. I'll do a trace route. Okay, trace route. Actually, excuse me, trace RT. And we want to do www.google.com. So we're going to try to go to the web server. .com. And this might take a little bit. So while that's running, I'm going to go over to my Linux machine and I'm going to do the same thing. That way, hopefully, we can have both be done in the same ballpark. So over here, I got to get to my command prompt. There we go. We'll do trace route www.google.com, and we'll let that run. Looks like that got there a little bit quicker than the Windows did. And I might be able to even rerun that and see. There we go. We have a full process there, a full step right there. I'll make that wider so we can hopefully see all the steps. There we go. There we go. Look at that. and Windows is working its way there. So this is useful if I'm trying to get connection. Let's say I'm maintaining connections for Hacks campuses, and we're having an issue getting connected to a device or something down at one of the campuses, Gettysburg, Lancaster, York, whatever. If I run this will show me the path it's taking, and if I have a failure partway through, maybe it stops here and doesn't go any further, it'll let me know that that's where the potential issue is. Now, what I do see here is a timeout. Now, that could be a timeout, it took too long, or it could be a device that says, you know what, I'm not responding to that. Things like firewalls and so forth might not respond to the trace route process, because what it's doing is pinging and then trying to ping when it's tracing, it's trying to go to a step and get a response back, and then go to the next step and get a response back, and then go to the next step and get a response back. That's what it's doing. It's actually doing kind of a sneaky way where it sets the limit of one router. So it gets to the first router and has an error message of hey, you can't go any further, and it sends an error message back. Then the next one, it sends it 2 routers and then gets an error message, comes back. There's 3 routers, an error message, and comes back. So it kind of fools the devices into giving up its information is what it's doing. But this shows the path, and if I have a kind of a somewhere link where I'm not getting connection, this will let me know maybe where I have connection to begin the troubleshooting, looking maybe deeper into why we're not getting beyond that point. So on my Linux and Windows, we're going to copy these results again. I'm going to copy the command here, traceroute, and I'll do Control-C here on Windows. I'll go to my text file over here, and this was part 8 now. So we're going to do part 8, traceroute, and I will paste that in. There's my traceroute to Google on this machine. And then over on the Linux side, we'll highlight these. Do a Control-C, or I can do a highlight, right-click, copy kind of thing. I'll go to my text file. And again, this is part 8, and this is my trace route. And I will paste that in, and I will save that. I'll do a file save and make sure I've updated my file data, if you will. The last command we have here is kind of a unique one that we have on Linux. We can do a command line Wireshark, if you will, with what's called TCP dump. So let me close out. I'm going to minimize my text files that I have here. I'm not going to close them, I'm just going to minimize them so I have a little bit easier screen to look at. On my Linux machine, this might already be installed, but we're going to make sure we have TCP dump installed. So we're going to do sudo apt install TCP dump and password CNT class. And it very well might already be installed. Yeah, 0 upgraded, newly installed, etc. That's fine. So we're just going to use what's there then. And now we're going to run a command, sudo TCP dump ICMP. That way we capture some ICMP traffic on this machine. So I'm going to do, actually before I do that, I want to pay attention to my IP address. So ifconfig. This guy is 10.114. Good. All right. So from my Windows machine, I'm going to need to ping 10.114. So over here, I will need to do a ping from 192.168.10.114. All right. So I know that works. All right. What I want to do now is on my Linux machine, I want to get this TCP dump running, and it's going to be kind of like a command line Wireshark. Super nerdy. So sudo, we want to do sudo TCP dump ICMP. Sudo TCP dump ICMP. I just want to see ICMP traffic. It's now running. It's listening. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to reissue that ping. And I should now start seeing those ping request replies show up on my command line over here. Yep, this is a command line Wireshark. Super cool. Super cool. So there is my echo request, my echo reply. It's even showing from 107 to this machine and then going back to 107. From 107 to this machine and going back to 107, request reply. And I'll do a Control-C here. That'll stop that. And now I want to highlight and copy this. And I will copy this and I will put this in my Linux text file. So let me get my Linux text file up. And this is part 9 TCP dump. and I will paste that in there. That is my command line Wireshark on Linux, which is kind of neat. They mention these kind of things in the book, so we're getting you a chance to try them. All right. Last part 10, we're going to do a remote access connection between our Windows PCs. So we'll come back in that the next podcast.